Hi, everyone. So we've all been in the situation where we see someone homeless on the side of the road and not know what to do. It's really difficult not to just look away, act like you're busy, drive by like nothing's wrong. But what are you supposed to do for that person? It's really hard to tell. I've tried things like donating clothes and food and volunteering at different organizations around Denver, but nothing has seemed to make a big impact. For any of you guys who have been at Front Range for a while, you may remember a thing we did called Go Thursday. So this was where we would get in our D group groups and go to different places around Denver and just volunteer. I can't remember specifically where my group went one time, but it was some sort of food bank. And they had us sorting through canned foods and other random fruits and vegetables. At one point, they had us put on gloves and sort through these moldy, rotten onions. The smell, as you can imagine, was rancid, but that wasn't even the worst part. We had accidentally thrown all of the plastic trash in with the food trash. And since the food was going to pigs to be eaten, I had to jump into this dumpster and take out all the plastic. It was awful. So there I was, standing in the middle of this massive dumpster full of rotten onions, wondering what on earth we were doing. In our attempt to help the homeless, we were doing what seemed like pointless, meaningless work. So I think I can fairly say that pretty much all of us who participated in Go Thursday hated it. No offense, Front Range. It was just not a good time. I think this is how a lot of us view volunteer work. It's kind of boring and unimportant, something you do every once in a while but doesn't have any real value. I've always had the desire to help those in need within my community, especially the homeless. And I become motivated to make a change in the world when I see people on the streets with nothing. I just wish that I could fix all of their lives. But what is the best way to help? It's our mission from God to do this. Isaiah 58:10 calls us to pour ourselves out for the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted. Then shall your light rise in the darkness. We are literally called to further God's kingdom by helping those in need and just doing what we can to spread his word. So for my capstone project this year, I decided to figure out the best ways that we can help the homeless. So the first thing I needed to do before figuring that out was just understanding the homeless situation in Denver a bit better. There's actually a lot going on that we don't know about. I did an interview with Ben Suey at the Joshua Station, and he informed me of a thing called the urban camping ban. So this is a law in Denver that pretty much makes homelessness illegal. From time to time, police officers will go through and do what they call sweeps, which is where they go up to any homeless camp they see or any homeless person and give them a day and time that they need to just leave by. And if they're not out by that designated day and time, all of their stuff will be thrown away. And since it is illegal to be homeless, these people are fearing arrest. So though this may seem necessary in keeping the town clean, it's honestly just an immoral and awful thing to do to these people. I mean, imagine only having the stuff you can carry in a bag, and now having the risk of it all being taken away and potentially going to jail just for not having a place to live. So that being said, things like socks, canned foods, some money handouts aren't really going to do much to help these people. This sounds really hopeless. There's obviously a lot that needs to be done that I couldn't accomplish over a year-long high school project, like changing the laws and regulations of Denver. So what can we do now? The first thing I learned is that we need to understand ourselves better. So for this project, I read the book When Helping Hurts. And spoiler alert, one of the big messages of the book is that we are not better than the homeless. This seems kind of self-explanatory, but if we're honestly looking at ourselves, I mean, I know I have a lot, typically just viewing ourselves better than those who have less than us. This is really dangerous as it turns volunteer work into a way to make ourselves feel good about ourselves. So instead of going in serving, you're going in as the hero, saving someone and making their life better. And this is not what volunteer work should be about. It should be about who you're serving and what you're trying to do for them. So now that we have that in mind, the second big thing is to understand the homeless culture. How can we honestly help a group of people that we just don't understand? I did another interview with Micah Harrison at the Life Center through Mission Hills, and he shared that when he first started his job, he acted like he knew everything that the homeless people needed, everything that they wanted, and he could just solve everything for them, when in reality that just wasn't working. So once he stepped back, asked questions, let them share what they actually wanted and needed, he was able to make an impactful change. So from his experience, he shared 2 really important points to keep in mind when you're serving. The first is to maintain boundaries with the homeless. So Micah shared that when a homeless person comes into the Life Center asking for help, they have a 15-minute timer. And during those 15 minutes, they can share whatever they'd want, they can help them immediately, make a plan to help more long-term, and then once the 15 minutes is over, the person is told to leave. This sounds really awkward and kind of harsh, right? But he said it has helped everyone involved so much. The person coming in knows when they need to leave. They're not there to wonder if they're overstaying their welcome. And then for the Life Center itself, it can keep running smoothly and not have to worry about people trying to stay the night or, overstay their welcome. So keeping boundaries can be good for you and me too when we're deciding what we can do for a person. Going into situations where you're asking someone if you can help them, it can be really intimidating if they ask you something that you know you can't handle or afford, or that you just feel like you shouldn't do. So going into that knowing that you can maybe offer some resources for them or maybe buy them some lunch, and then not having to do anything else than that can be really good for you. Like, you don't have to save everyone you meet. Just doing what you can make an impact. The second big lesson Micah shared with me was just to respect who you're serving. A lot of homeless people just don't feel respected. Micah shared the story of a man who came into the Life Center asking for help and out of nowhere just started screaming and shouting and making a scene, and everybody was so confused, like, what's he doing? Ended up, somebody had offered him a tissue, and he said he couldn't accept it because it would appear that he's lower and less than the person who offered it to him. This is obviously a very extreme case, but when people are constantly being offered things that they don't need, are being offered things that they can do for themselves, it can come off as really disrespectful. So, just keeping that in mind and respecting these people can make it a huge change. Don't talk down to them, like, get off your butt and just work. Like, they're people too and deserve the same respect that anybody else does. So this kind of leads to, I would argue, the most important point to consider when you're serving the homeless, which is helping them help themselves. So all of humanity was created to work, even the homeless. So we're not really helping by giving out food or money. That's just defeating the whole purpose of life. It's not getting to the root causes of poverty. It's just helping the surface level. So a story from the book When Helping Hurts is the story of Alyssa Collins. She was a single mom, I believe, of 6 kids, who felt trapped in the welfare system. She would try to get a job, but then her checks would be taken away, so then she would feel discouraged to get a job because she just wanted to hand out money. And then when she did get a job, she felt disrespected by her coworkers who looked down at her, and she felt embarrassed that she couldn't do the same things as them. So it's clear here that handing her family some snacks or $20 really wouldn't help their situation whatsoever. What Alyssa really needed was someone to walk alongside of her and encouraged her as she stuck with her jobs, and maybe watched her kids while she went to work, taught her new things that she needed to learn. So once again, this leads to another really important point, which is creating friendships and relationships with those you're serving. A lot of the people you see on the streets don't have any family or friends that they can rely on. I mean, obviously, why would they be living on the streets if they did? So it's really important to create those relationships. As a teen girl, this obviously sounds really intimidating. Most homeless people are portrayed as, creepy old drug addicts who wander the streets. And though this can be an obvious form of homelessness, there are many other forms, like Alyssa, the single mom struggling to get out of the welfare system, or maybe runaway teens escaping abusive situations. I will say relationships can be very tricky. This year, for one of my experiences, I volunteered at David Clifton Ministries for their Thanksgiving outreach program, which is where they make a whole lot of food and just serve it out to the homeless who can come by and take whatever they want. I really enjoyed it. It was fun to be able to talk to the people and, just interact with them. It wasn't that boring, rotten onion sorting through type vibe of volunteer work. It felt more meaningful than that. So I have mixed feelings about this because obviously from the book When Helping Hurts that I read, the big idea is that you're not helping by giving out handouts. You're supposed to help them help themselves. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about this because we showed them love and we were there for them, but at the same time it didn't really make a big change. Overall though, I think these kind of services can be very important just in creating friendships, and that possibly could lead to more long-term. So speaking of long-term friendships, I want to share the story of a man that my family met. At our old house, there's a park right by our house, and we would constantly see this guy living in his car. So my family went up one day and just decided to ask, like, hey, is there anything like we can do for you? His name was Terry. He had a job and he was really hardworking, but he just wasn't making enough to afford housing. And he refused any help that we offered him. So though he refused help, it was just like a really cool, unexpected friendship. We would see him driving by at his job at the rec center near our house, and we would always wave at him and say hi to him. And so it was just really fun to be able to have that in our lives. So relationships are obviously a very practical way to help the homeless. So how can you find these relationships? How can you build these? One place I recommend would be going to the Joshua Station. So if you don't know what this is, the Joshua Station is kind of like a big apartment complex where families can come and live while they're trying to get back on their feet. So not only do they have the housing and food provided, but they also have programs where they can recover from addictions or learn new skills to get jobs. And then once they're ready, they can move into their own place with their families. So every Thursday night, the Joshua Station has like these dinner gatherings where volunteers can come, bring a dish, and just get to know the people living there, hear their stories, hear what they're doing to get better, and just be an encouragement and walk alongside them through their journeys. So this is obviously a really cool place. I highly recommend doing that. And another way to build relationships would just be talking to people you see on the street. This, again, sounds really scary and intimidating, but it can be very rewarding. Obviously, take precautions like going with a group of friends or just trusting your gut if it feels unsafe. Another great place to volunteer would be the Life Center, which is through Mission Hills. Their main goal is to help others help themselves. What I love about this is they have a program called the Work to Earn program, which is pretty much exactly as it sounds. The homeless can come and instead of getting handouts like food or money, they can volunteer at the Life Center and then in return get food stamps or lockers to hold their things and a whole bunch of other stuff. I really love this since it is how God created us to be, to work for what we're getting instead of just sitting and receiving. Not only that, but they have many programs to teach the homeless new things, like the Joshua Station, like how to deal with money, how to do taxes, things they maybe never learned and just need in the real world. Politicians and police absolutely love these programs since they're getting the homeless off the streets and doing things with their lives. They also have programs for you and me where you can go and learn like better ways to help the homeless. So if you're feeling inspired today, you can check that out. Another important way you can help is just donating money. A lot of the verses in the Bible are about donating money to help the homeless. 2 Corinthians 9:6 says, "Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." Obviously, research and ask questions before you donate to places, and just make sure you're donating to places that are getting at the root causes and not just, finding the surface level problems and helping those. Additionally, you can just encourage these places and pray for them. Prayer can really go a long way, so praying for these organizations and the people you see in the streets can make a difference. Okay, so as of right now, I don't know what I want to study or do with my life. All I know is that I want to incorporate helping the homeless into it somehow. Whether that's being a teacher and being a mentor and a good influence on some homeless kids' lives, or getting into local politics and being able to change some regulations in Denver regarding the homeless. I just want to help them as best as I can. A verse that I love is John 15:12, which says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." So I really hope that with my life I can just love others well and share God's love to everyone. And I can't wait to see where God uses me to do that. Thank you.